Come here.
I'm Dahi, and this is Rua, my pet Irish setter. And as you can hear,
Sit. Ah, what a good girl. Come here, Paul.
she's only learning basic training.
Paul. Oh, such a good girl.
She's crazy. But as crazy as she is, well, we already love her.
Who's that? Come here. Look.
There are 9 native breeds of dog in Ireland. The Irish Water Spaniel, the Irish Red Setter, the Irish Red and White Setter. They're the gun dogs. The terriers are the Irish Terrier, the Kerry Blue Terrier, the Irish Soft-Coated Wheaten Terrier, and the Glenavermal Terrier. And the hounds are the Wolfhound and the Kerry Beagle. But what do pets really mean to their owners?
We were saying about how they're part of the family and you have full conversations with them. You know, when you're watching TV, you know, I would say to them, look at that, you know, on TV. When I retired, I had to get somebody to look after.
To come home to.
Yeah, just my wee friend.
Certainly
Yes.
is.
Oh, aye. Keeps me sane.
Just total friends who are there all the time for every purpose. And very loyal animals, which quite often a lot of people aren't.
But this is the story of the Irish Red and White Setter, a breed that was once on the verge of extinction.
The Irish Red and White Setter, first of all, in their working style, they're very distinct. The birds are all undercover, so they cover this great big bog or field, and they're moving from side to side, going quarter, gradually moving along, waiting till they catch a scent of a bird. They then will go into a kind of a set position, which means they stop rigid with their nose pointed towards where the bird is undercover. As regards how they look, their coat should be very silky and shiny. Both their chestnut colour in their red, and their white should be a pearly white. Also, clear islands, not too much flecking on the body. That's frowned upon because there's a suggestion there maybe the English setter might have been somewhere in the blood if you see that. So clear islands of red, nice shiny coat, and this is what they're renowned for worldwide.
Up you get. Jim Sheridan has been involved with Irish Red and White Setters since 1982, and it's been both a love and a passion for him.
Hello, Jim. How are you? Jim, I'm Dahi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for welcoming us down here.
No, Tony, you're very welcome.
This is Rua, who's been on a journey with us today.
Yeah, she travelled fine. Yeah, where'd you get her?
What sparked his initial interest was an article outlining the attempted revival of the breed, and it's at that stage he realised that there were 2 Irish setters.
Crossbreed. I think her daddy was a red setter and her mum was a red and white
red and
setter.
white, yeah.
Shortly afterwards, he bought his first dog in Fermanagh, and what followed became a lifelong interest in red and whites.
Hey, do you want to come in?
Thank you so much. Yeah, you go on ahead. You show the way.
Yeah.
Could you come in, Jim? Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't mind?
Yeah.
Oh
That's my equivalent of the man shed.
wow. A man cave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I keep all my
Fantastic.
stuff to do with dogs and
His kennel prefix
pictures and
is
things
Craig
like
Rua.
that, you know. It's a kennel name so that when people see it, they can identify who the breeder was. Like all my dogs have Craig Rua before their name.
And where did the name come from?
And that actually came from the townland where I lived in Donegal. It's a shortened version of the old Gaelic name for the townland where I'm from, which was Craig Matherua, which was Rock of the Red Dog. And I shortened it up to Craig Rua to create a prefix.
What was it about this particular breed that really caught your attention and grabbed your heart at the start?
One, their history. They're part of our heritage, and they're part of our heritage that nearly slipped off the cliff. And just the whole thing about preserving that part of our heritage was very, very important. And not only that, they're a very attractive breed. They're a nice dog to look at. And once I got my first, I was hooked.
I'm very curious
yeah.
about this really checkered history of the Irish Red and White Setter breed. You talked about it nearly falling off the cliff, nearly disappearing out of existence. Tell me, Jim, a little bit about the significant figures in this story that have an important role to play in the history of the reintroduction of the breed.
Probably going back to the earlier revival. You go back to Reverend Robbie Houston
Yeah.
in County Down, Ballinhinch, and Dr. Elliott, and they worked together. The Reverend Houston was an army chaplain, and when he came back after the war, he realised that there were very few red and whites left, so he set about trying to revive the breed. And they also picked up some red and white dogs and red with white in County Monaghan, and from there they developed a pool.
It's not overstating it to say that without Noble Houston and his colleagues, the breed would be out of existence.
Well, I think it is fair to say, if you look back at all the people involved in the revival of the breed. When you trace back through the pedigrees of all the dogs and all red and whites today, everything goes back to Reverend Houston.
Here you have some beautiful photos on the wall.
That is Eldrin Bryan with Professor May in Belfast.
Oh, look.
That's from the Houston's dogs.
That is
It
beautiful.
was also winner at field trials, yeah.
Right.
Eldrin Bryan is behind Jeremy McCullough and Judith McCullough.
Jim gives us some details of the setter bloodlines from the minister's time. It's said that the minister recorded his puppy litters on the church register.
I think you can't overestimate the importance of the effort that the Reverend Houston made in preserving the breed.
Hello.
Hi, Judy.
Yes.
Judy, it's Dahi Murray here in BBC Radio Ulster.
Oh, hello. Hi, Dahi.
And who better to give us a little more information about the Reverend Houston than a family member? This is Judy.
I'm Judy Lean, and Noble Houston was my grandpa. I'm one of 3 grandchildren of Joyce Houston, who was my mother and was his second child. He had 5 children.
Judy, tell me some of the memories your mum passed on to you about her dad, your granddad, the
Yeah.
Reverend Noble Houston.
Yeah, she remembered him very fondly, but I think she was a little bit afraid of him as well. She remembered him as a loving and a humorous man, and he had a flair for the dramatic, I think. But he could get angry very suddenly. And I sometimes think that maybe that's because he was a chaplain in the First World War, and he must have seen some awful things. But I think perhaps the dogs were therapeutic, and also they were very hard up, so it must have been, it must have been a way of raising a bit of cash to breed the dogs. My older brother, unfortunately, has died, but he went to visit the hall where, there's a hall there named after him, Noble Houston Hall in Ballynahinch. And my brother wrote a little piece in the Farmer's Journal about it. And apparently he lived across the road from the priest, and the priest raised cows, and Grandpa raised bees. And between them they had a land of Catholic milk and Protestant honey, my brother said.
The Reverend Houston was a unique character by all accounts, who was sometimes to be seen riding a motorcycle with an Irish red and white setter perched on the back with its paws on his shoulders. He ministered at the First Presbyterian Church in Ballynahinch, County Down.
My name is Tom Morrow, and at First Presbyterian Church, Ballynahinch, I'm the treasurer. I look after the money side of the church's affairs. Okay, we're in the Houston Hall, which is the church hall at First Presbyterian Church in Ballynahinch, and we're looking at a picture on the wall of the Reverend Noble Houston, taken in his early days in this church. He arrived here in 1907, left the congregation actually at his death in 1944, so he was here for 37 years. He was married in the year 1908, and the congregation at that time gave him an illuminated text to say how much they thought of him on the occasion of his marriage. In fact, it says here that they haven't really known him for very long. Our experience of you is not measured in years. We have had ample opportunity of recognising your many excellent qualities. Less than 2 years ago, you came to us with high recommendations. And basically, they're saying in conclusion that they're looking forward to a long time with him. They actually gave him not only this illuminated dress as a memento, but a purse of sovereigns. So we're talking gold sovereigns here. Not as a reward, for we could not recompense you for all your kindness to us, but as slight tokens of our affection and esteem.
I mean, for his day, I think he was a bit broad-minded. I don't know if those times were more or less sectarian than our own, but when the Catholic, either church or hall was burnt down, my grandpa let the Catholic congregation use the Presbyterian hall for their services, and there was a big protest march against this, and the marchers sort of went up and down outside the house, and they called him Pope Houston, and also I think they called him Owl Housty, and he used to give out to them from the pulpit about battering the Lambeg drum on the 12th outside the Catholic Church, and I think a lot of them took exception to that as well.
That's a fascinating picture of what seems to be a very progressive minister for his time.
Yes, very fascinating for his time. Yeah, I my mum was rather proud of him about all that.
I mean, his first names were William Benjamin, Noble Houston. He had a BA and refers to the fact that he was minister here for 37 years and that he died in 1944. It then refers to his son, Clark Houston, who was an RAF man, and then refers to his wife, Jessie, who died aged 86 in 1964. And then it says erected by the congregation.
And so I went to speak to one of the members of the congregation about his memories of the Reverend Houston.
I'm Billy Douglas. I was born in Ballynahinch in 1924, which makes me just 92. My father's name was Hugh Robinson Douglas, and he lived till he was 90. My mother lived till she was 98 and a half. He was an auctioneer, an undertaker, and a valuer in Ballynahinch.
And do you remember the Reverend Houston being a minister in the First Presbyterian Church?
I do, yes. He was small like myself, very friendly, and he was a breeder of dogs and very keen on that. At one stage he was to conduct a funeral, and he was so much interested in having a bitch that he had mated to have pups at the right time that he forgot all about the funeral. My father was the funeral undertaker and had to go for him to come to conduct the funeral. You're going back now at least 75 years possibly. When he returned from the funeral, he said you wouldn't believe it, but his reverence forgot to turn up today.
Are you proud of your grandfather?
I am very proud of him. I mean, I knew the things my mum had told me, but I was absolutely fascinated about this thing about the dog, that it was something so special, that he was rescuing the breed sort of thing. He and Maureen Cuddy, is it?
That's right.
Yeah.
And Maureen Cuddy and the Reverend Noble Houston corresponded with each other until the Reverend's death in 1944. They shared a mutual love of the breed and were hugely interested in its revival and its survival.
And whenever I see the Bus Éireann logo with a red setter on it, I always sort of think of him. I do feel a connection to Bus Éireann because of the dog.
Well, as the owner of a beautiful Irish red and white setter, Judy, I'm very proud of your grandfather as well, and I'm delighted to find out a lot more about this very, very special man.
You have one yourself?
I have,
That's
yeah.
interesting. and what is the state of the breed now? I mean, I was kind of thinking I really would like to have one after all this.
It's in very good health. We spent Saturday in County Wicklow at the home of Jim Sheridan, who's kind of the master breeder for the Irish Kennel Club, for the Irish Red and White Setter breed. He's in charge of the Outcross programme for the Irish Kennel Club. The Irish Kennel Club undertook their second Outcross programme in 2011, where Red and White Setters are bred with Red Setters to increase the genetic diversity of the breed, and it aims to prevent the emergence of future health and genetic problems resulting from inbreeding.
Back in the late 1980s, an outcross programme was agreed with Irish Kennel Club and the Breed Club. Unfortunately, not many people took part, and I was the only one to actually see it through. And you'll see a picture on the wall there of Craig Ruffin. That was a first generation outcross, and I didn't get any red and whites in the first litter. I got red with some white, and then using that dog, bred to a red and white, I then created another line. And my first two field trial champions, Craig Ruffin and Firefly, come from that outcross.
Oh, they're beautiful.
It got to the stage nearly probably the 70s where it was getting very, very rare, and it looked like there was a possibility of extinction.
Sean Delmer is the president of the Irish Kennel Club and also chairman of the Irish Breed Society.
So in an effort to curtail that, the Irish Kennel Club put a programme in 1979, a crossbreeding programme with the cooperation of the Red Setter Club and the Red Setter Fraternity. The basic way it works is you have a population, you test them for health, you test them for genetic positives, then you interact with specific dogs that you think will suit from Red Setters and Red and Whites, and gradually you assess the progeny of the first litter. You keep what you think are those have the qualities and the colouring that you desire. Then you go again, and eventually you get a 3 generation down the line, you get what you consider is as pure as you're going to get into a pure red and white setter. It was very successful at the time and resulted in 23 field trial champions coming out of it. So that was really good, and some success in the show ring.
Welcome to class. Quite simply, the greatest dog show in the world.
Including one that was shown at Crufts, and they hadn't really details of it, so they just put them in with the red setters, and he actually won a class.
This is the one show that no fancier dreams of missing.
And that generated interest from Australia and America. And I'm afraid to say sometimes popularity has a negative side in that a lot of those breeding lines from that cross program were exported and put us back into the position where we were about 8 or 9 years ago, where we were almost back to where we started.
There's a current outcross program that's been up and going now for the last 5-6 years. This time there's a bit more uptake, but we also opened it up internationally. So 2 outcrosses have taken place in Holland and the rest are in Ireland. So there's 7 outcrosses at the minute. It's early days. We're as far as 3rd generation, and I'm just expecting a litter of 3rd generation pups up here shortly. But it's been successful, and actually the first outcross that was done was a bitch, you see there, Craig Lucky, my champion bitch.
Beautiful.
I made it her to a red field trial champion, and I had red and whites in 1st generation, and I made that dog up a field trial champion at 2 years 10 months, youngest ever made up.
Wow.
Outstanding dog.
What's your stock like now?
I have an excellent stock, yeah. Yeah, very good kennel. I've had a lot of field trial champions, yeah.
All traced back to Craig Finn?
Yep, to that outcross, yeah.
Well, perhaps you'd be kind enough to maybe let me see your kennels, let me see some of this beautiful breed.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
On you go.
Up the back here.
Yeah, terrific. So what size of a stock do you have? How many dogs have you got at the moment?
Let me see. 7, 8, 9, 10 red and whites, and I have a couple of Gordons there as well. I want to realise we're coming.
Oh,
see?
now look.
And there's enough of them.
There certainly is. Wow. Well, you have a terrific setup here.
Yeah, that's the oldest bitch in the kennel there.
Okay.
That's Craig Lucky.
We saw her picture down below, yeah.
She's over 13,
Wow.
13 and a half. And still going strong.
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
What's her temperament like?
Lovely. Actually, the temperament of red and whites is very
Yeah.
friendly, you know. And she's a 2nd generation outcross bitch.
Oh.
Isla.
Hello, Isla. What a beautiful dog.
She's a lovely bitch.
Oh, isn't she?
And I made it her to another 2nd generation dog I bred. So these will be 3rd generation in the program.
Lovely.
And I'd actually pulsed together 3 different outcrosses in the one litter.
Yes.
But it's just trying to create different lines.
Exactly.
You know. But it's over 3 generations. So you have a chance to assess working ability, temperament, colour, type, everything.
Can you tell me a little bit about the science behind it, the actual science of dog breeding, the genetics behind it and how important it all is?
First of all, in relation to the colour of the red and white, once you get red and white colour, it breeds true. Even when you outcross to red setters, he's 1st generation from red setter. He will only throw red and white ever again. So even though the red setter will produce
Well,
red and white,
all pedigree dogs are man-made.
Sean Delmar again. I asked him, what's the definition of a purebred dog?
Purely and simply, they were bred for specific reasons and developed with characteristics, temperament and structure and coat and attitude to reflect what man wanted with them.
Sean, what's the difference between, say, show dogs and working dogs?
Well, show dogs, they're judged by a set of standards, and there's usually about 8 or 10 pages of a description of the perfect dog. Now, it doesn't really exist. It's the ideal dog of this particular breed. Whereas with gun dogs, working gun dogs, the first priority is the ability to do the job. So it doesn't matter if the dog is an ugly looking dog with 2 different eyes and whatever like that. If he is a good setting, pointing or retriever dog and does the job efficiently, he's worth his weight in gold.
Jim Sheridan.
Jim, you only breed working dogs, is that right?
yeah.
Not show dogs or...
No.
No, why is that?
Well, they are a working breed. And for a red and white setter to be a red and white setter, it should be true to its heritage and its pedigree. And its heritage is a working dog.
Sean, how did other national kennel clubs react to the crossbreeding of the Irish Red Setter with the Irish Red and White Setter?
There's some poor negative reaction from Canada and America, some from UK who don't think it's a good idea. But Listen, we can't be responsible for the pedigree database in other countries or what they do. And unfortunately, we just have to work with what we have. And we've gone through this and took all the right advice. And listen, we think it's for the better of the breed, certainly as far as we're concerned here in Ireland. And listen, if other kennel clubs go another route and achieve success, great, we don't have a problem with that. But really, I think they should recognise and respect that we have a responsibility and an authority over red and white setters.
Anybody who breeds dogs is playing God. I'm Gail Harrison, and I'm the secretary of the Irish Red and White Setter Club of Canada. We can't control everything. We can only do what we think is right for a breed. And that's what we in Canada are trying to do. We're breeding from dogs that we know the pedigrees. Irish Red and White Setters, we're getting to know now what problems might be in the breed. When I got my first dog, the only thing that was known about the breed that sometimes, a case of hips perhaps, but most people weren't even checking hips. Since then, we've found so many problems, and that's what breeding dogs is about, sharing information, finding out what problems are in the breed and doing something about getting away from them, breeding away from them, without sacrificing any more gene pool than we need to. We who breed within our gene pool were never given any reason why an outcross, so-called, or a crossbreeding in my mind, needed to be done.
What's your opinion on I don't know if controversy is the right word of this, that other national kennel clubs have had about the Irish Red and White Setter outcross programme?
Well, if they understood the breed and they understood the pedigrees, then they shouldn't have a problem. Because if they look back far enough, they'll find that most of their red and whites actually go back into red setters anyway. And people get all high and mighty about purity and they're outcrossing again and there's no need for it. There is a need for it, and there's always a need to keep your gene pool wide, because eventually over time, if you don't, your breed gets weaker and you just get into a cul-de-sac, and then that's when problems and diseases set in. Fortunately for the red and white in their country of origin, they've always existed in the hands of working people, so that heritage has been pretty well preserved. And even today, there's not that many red and whites being shown in Ireland. They're mainly in the hands of working people and field trialers,
Gail, do you agree that more bloodlines will be needed to keep the Irish Red and White Setter as healthy as they are now in the future?
No, I do not. There are bloodlines available. I myself am a line breeder, not an inbreeder, but a line breeder. I breed carefully, but I do bring in some fresh blood. I have been breeding for 35 years now, English setters before the red and white, so I know what works. I know that if you breed out, you need to be careful what you bring in. And when I say out, I mean within the Irish Red and White Setter population, but a line that you haven't had before or that has several dogs in 3 generations that are different from what you're breeding from. You need to know those generations. You need to know what problems may or may not have been encountered or what problems have been got rid of through a DNA test, such as we have for Clad or von Willebrands, for instance, in our breed. So we can get rid of things if we're careful. It's a matter of being careful and knowing what you're doing.
We in Ireland would always refer back to the breed clubs. We do cooperate with them and take advice from breeders and the breed clubs, but the Irish Kennel Club always maintains the authority over the breeds of Irish origin. So any programme would have to be sanctioned by us. Other kennel clubs give a lot more importance to the breed clubs, especially if the breed concerned is not one of their own native breeds, and they allow a lot of authority and a lot of suggestions to come from those.
5 years on, are you still against the outcross programme?
Oh, I certainly am. As vehemently as I ever have been, and I always will be.
Do you consider the Irish Red and White Setter that's derived from an outcross programme less pure than the international variety?
Yes, I certainly do.
Rua? Yep.
Ah, good girl. Come here, Paul.
It's obviously that a lot of personal effort and commitment and dedication by individuals over a period of 2 centuries has stopped this breed from going into extinction. But this should not be the total responsibility of individuals or small organisations, and that's why the Irish Kennel Club have made an application to the government down here to make the Irish breeds, to grant them heritage status. At least the state would have a responsibility in maintaining this really important part of our culture that's just been held together by a couple of dedicated individuals over the centuries.
Who's this, Jim?
That's Devon.
You going to win?
There you go. That's Devon.
You going to get up? That's the good girl.
No, that's a good girl.
Good girl, Rua. She's going to see what a working dog does. So, Jim, tell me the process of training a setter for this type of work.
It takes time and patience, and all you're trying to do is harness the dog's natural abilities and fine-tune it to a very high standard. And initially you start with basic discipline: sit, stay, come in, and then you get that reinforced. You take them out into wide open spaces. You're trying to get them to use their natural abilities to quarter the wind. So you try and catch them doing it right. So with a young pup and that, I would tend to walk with them, cast off right, and then I would turn and go left. So when they turn around and see me, I'll go off to the left. So you kind of trick them into using the wind. But there is a natural inclination to use the wind anyway. And this dog here, from the very beginning, he quartered quite naturally. I had no training to do. He'd done it systematically from he started.
Intuitive.
Yeah, it was just intuitive.
So, Jim, where are you taking us?
It's just up to a bog. It's about 5 minutes drive. So all the fields up behind me here are still in wheat. So you can't very well run the dog through the wheat. Might upset the farmer.
Sure it would.
I will just give him a couple of casts to just give you an idea
Great.
of what it is to do. Sheep.
Jim, tell us what we just saw there.
Okay, I know it's only a few minutes, but what you saw, the wind's on her face here. You actually saw him quartering the wind, and there's some very long rushes out there, and you see that he stopped. He could smell what I couldn't see, that there was actually sheep in the rushes. And he's trained to avoid sheep.
Oh, so he wouldn't go any further?
So that's why he didn't go any further there. Come back down this way, yeah.
Oh, good dog.
So he remembered his manners,
Exactly.
you know. Field trials have been instrumental in the success of the revival since the 1980s of the red and white. When I came into the breed, at first I realised very quickly that the only way that you get recognition and get the breed recognition is by being able to go out in competition and beat the best of the other breeds, the pointers, the English setters, the Irish setters. And I actually came across a note I had written to the club after joining them, I found in the files years later, which I'd forgotten I'd written, stating that it was my intention to breed them up to field trial standard. And at the time I had no idea what that actually entailed, but it was a stated intention, and it came to pass, because when you start running in trials, people take notice, and people take interest.
Credibility follows.
And their breed is established in its credibility. When I came into trials first, it was sort of, you laughed at turning up with the red and white. Not anymore.
And a positive future for this breed?
Very positive future, yeah. I have no doubt whatsoever. You'll see a lot more success in this breed yet.
I fell in love with Rua the first time I clapped eyes on her. I was so curious to find out more about this breed, and I suppose to find out if the breed shared Rua's really, really positive characteristics, that friendly temperament that she has, that irascible, naughty side, and I suppose her absolute adorability as a family pet. Now, what I discovered in this journey has explained to me so much more about this very proud breed of dog. What it's also shown me is how the commitment of a very small, very dedicated group of individuals who quietly, without any recognition, without any huge acclaim, set about to systematically rescue the Irish red and white setter from extinction and restore the breed to its rightful position in our society. Something which means dog owners like me can continue to enjoy their loyalty, their companionship and their beauty for many years to come.
That's a good girl. Come on.